Welcome to our little program, episode 8 of Mr. Rubio Used to Run. I'm Joe Rubio, and this is my wingman, Connor Blaylock. And today's podcast will have a definite Austin, Texas feel to it. And we have a special guest.
You know, special guests just keep coming each week. We're always lifting it up a level. And, we're trying to show some highlighting faces in the building. And this next one is a big one.
Yes.
Digital marketing manager. And we have some history because we went to Cal Poly together, roommates, HOKA Aggie teammates. He was a little faster than me. He's got PRs of 13:56, 29:08, 64:33. Did I get it right?
Yeah, that's it.
We got Sean Davidson in the building. How you doing, Sean?
That was a very generous intro. I appreciate it, Connor. I'm happy to be with you guys, just talking about whatever. Austin, Texas, I guess.
Austin, Texas, and the running event. But first, we're going to start the conversation with the burning question we're addressing today. What should you spend your hard-earned dollars on and not skimp? Any ideas?
It's a tough one because there is so much stuff out there, and prices just keep going up a little higher. So you're always pinching pennies. But I think for me, the running shorts are probably the most important. You need a good pair of shoes, of course, but I feel like a lot of people cheap out on the running shorts, and I don't wear a shirt most of the time, so you don't want any.
You're giving the ladies a treat,
Yeah, something like that. But some people, they wear their shorts for 10, 15, 20 years, and I'm looking.
I think we have an example here, right here.
I have a feeling why I know I'm on this episode.
This is an intervention, Sean.
I've notoriously been known as the guy that keeps his shorts around for way too long. I still have my varsity issued race shorts from high school, probably sitting in my drawer somewhere, but my wife has been very good about helping me update my wardrobe, and I don't wear those anymore, I swear. I'm on a better path now.
Yeah. In my opinion, what you don't cheap out on is anything that touches your skin, like socks, shorts, shirts, bras, whatever it is. It makes a world of difference. Like underwear, like if you have uncomfortable underwear, I don't care what's going on in your life. You're not happy at all.
I mean, 120-mile run in a little bit of and you get that burning, that's game over.
It's game over.
I just use a lot of Body Glide myself.
That can help.
So back, I forgot how long ago, this was a Brooks 50th anniversary party, and we stayed in this fancy hotel, and of course I forgot running shorts, and we're not anywhere near the Brooks building, and so I send my wife out to get me some shorts, and I say, it can't be branded, because you can't go to a Brooks run and wear Nike shorts or something like that. That's just in poor taste. Mm-hmm. So she comes back with a pair of running shorts from Target.
Okay.
They were horrible. They were crunchy, and the liner, the fabric was crunchy. So they were returned. There's chafing involved, right?
Yeah, okay,
it was really bad. So, but the other thing too is if you have ill-fitting or just bad socks, I don't care if you got a $300 pair of racing flats. We keep going back to Conover, but Conover in '88, he received all this free stuff from Reebok, and one of them was a brand new pair of polyester socks. And so by 8 miles, his feet were blistered up, so he had to drop out. Yeah.
As someone who gets everything free, I get so much free product. I feel like for years I was getting everything free but the socks, and I was still holding on to my Ross socks, the 12-pack of cotton. And Martine from Drymax, that's a shout out to Drymax. He sent me over some socks. He's like, just try these out. And I think he sent me 15 or 20 pairs, and I don't think I've worn anything since. I mean, it's just the difference is no more blisters.
No more blisters.
Yeah, socks is on my list too, as far as things I don't skimp on anymore. And I mean, obviously, like you're saying, you get a lot of free stuff. HOKA gives us some stuff as part of being on the Aggies running club. But I used to wear just white cotton socks all through high school, through most of college. Then I come here and realize there's actually a whole new world out there. Yeah, and it changed everything.
Of comfort.
Yeah, so much comfort. Yeah.
Well, that's enough of that. Let's move on to the running event. So what is the running event?
I mean, do we have enough time to go into this?
Yes, we do.
I mean, chaos.
It can be. It is the largest running specialty expo on the planet. And every every player, whether they're a brand or a store owner or a rep or designer, is there.
And you walk around, and just in this little square mile, you can't go more than 15 feet without seeing someone you know or getting stopped. I mean, it's just like anyone who's in the business, into running, is there.
Right. And it's a really condensed thing. So the expo is, Wednesday and Thursday?
Yep.
Right. And some people get there early to set up, and we got there early to do some podcasts and things like that. But it's held in Austin, Texas in December, and you get to see a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
You get to see early releases of stuff, secret stuff that we can't talk about, but we're going to hint at.
We might get a little bit into it. I mean, all three of us were in Austin, Texas recently, but Sean was actually there for a different reason. He's been to TRE in the past, but what were you there for?
Yeah, well, I mean, I went with you guys to the running event. I mean, man, the years kind of blend together. This was like 2017 or 2018. I was with you guys just as part of the Running Warehouse crew, and now working just for the Sports Warehouse company. Don't get to go on these awesome trips with you guys anymore. But we went there, and they have this race called the Indy 5K. And me and Scott Bowles at the time, he was another runner guy that was working with us, running with us, and we're just going to smash this thing, right? Like, we're just going to take out everyone. We're running competitively. We're training hard. And so we go out there, and we wear HOKA Hupanas for the race and run like 14:45 for the 5K and beat everybody. I think the third place guy was wearing Vaporflies, which was like, that was like, it just came out. And that was like, everyone was all about it. And we were wearing Hupanas, and we get through the finish line, we win. And they scratched us from the results because we're running Warehouse. They didn't see us as in the same vein, and so they didn't quite give us the same respect.
There's always a little shade thrown at running Warehouse. It's when Top Dog shows up.
Yeah. I think they held that a little bit against us, but I was like, it's okay. It's their event. They can do whatever they want. But I was actually in Austin just 2 weeks after you guys went to TRE for a wedding and for my wife's birthday. But I'm really excited to see what you guys actually got to do in Austin with all the running event stuff.
Yeah. Well, let's go into some of the cool stuff we saw.
Yeah. I mean, again, we can't get super detailed, but we'll give as much little sneak peeks as we can. I think maybe start off with Saucony.
Yes. They have a new foam that is very, very, very good. If you like soft and you like springy and you like fast, you'll like this.
And every week that goes by, I feel like we talk about this new shoe, this new foam, can it get better? And every week that goes by, we see something new, and we're like, well, the brands just keep pushing forward. And I tried on a very early proto of this secret Saucony shoe maybe a year ago. I won't specify who exactly it was, but there was a shoe that I was like, wow, this is amazing. And it looks like they've taken elements of that shoe, kind of fine-tuned it a little more, and I think Saucony's onto something in the next probably year, maybe early 25.
Yeah.
But
I know it's people that work for Saucony, they're saying, but they said it's the best foam they've ever produced. So pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the shoe that we saw has a higher stack, same weight.
Yep.
And way more energy return and way softer.
Yeah. I mean, everyone keeps pushing in the foams, in the geometries, and again, we'll see how much further they can go, but every brand is proving there is more room in the space.
Yeah, it's cool.
And with that being said, Adidas.
Yeah.
They also came in with some new shoes. We've seen the Evo 1. We've talked a lot about the Evo 1. Probably the leader in the space right now. I think it's between the Evo 1 and the Alpha Fly. Evo 1 definitely has the weight advantage, and they're taking some of that technology and trickling it on into a couple different versions of shoes that are going to be a little more mainstream.
Right, and also pretty light. Like, I want to say under 7 ounces.
I think so. Yeah. I think the preliminary is under 7 for the one.
Which is pretty good.
Pretty good.
And that's where a lot of this stuff is going. It's just becoming more lighter. It's becoming lighter.
Yeah. It's that Cal Poly education right there.
Yes, it is. Letting people down.
I know on a previous podcast, Joe, you're talking about how with running shoe foams, like it's going from like 75% return, 90% return. Like, how close are we getting to that?
We're getting 100%? Pretty close, because Saucony on their testing for this foam was 95, I want to say.
Wow.
It was up there. And again, every brand is going to test
and
what it actually means. But I mean, it's so once you get on your feet, and I know someone like you are a HOKA athlete, so you've got to wear HOKA shoes. But there was a time where you didn't have that super shoe, and I know you would look over at your competition, and those days are over because now Hoka's came in with the super shoes and there's some pretty good options.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of interesting there for a while because I know a lot of our teammates are like, oh man, look at this Nike shoe, look at this Adidas shoe. And I mean, I've never really been that guy myself. And Joe, you'd probably know that more than anyone. I'd never complain about shoe technology. I was wearing the ASICS Japan Thunders for cross country and track and field back in college. But no, like trying it out, like I was just really excited, even just getting in the Rocket X2. Like that was such a huge boost for me. Like I could go out and run a 65-minute half marathon faking it half the time. And yeah, like it's just been crazy to kind of see the technology grow. And yeah, as a HOKA athlete too, like I'm excited I can be part of that party now.
Yeah.
And there's another one too.
Speaking of HOKA,
yeah,
right? They have the new, super. Is it Skyward X?
Skyward X,
right?
Skyward.
So it's the new super trainer. You tried it on.
Yeah, and it's great. I mean, it reminded me a little bit of the Prime X, just in terms of overstacked 50 mil. The foam feels great, but it feels actually really stable. You think 50 mils, you're going to be falling around in the shoe, but it feels pretty stable. So I think someone like you who maybe has dealt with some injuries, maybe you don't want to go the full super shoe, that might be a good workout day shoe. You get all the cushioning, you get the stiffness, you get the stability. So some cool options coming from HOKA.
Yeah, I'm excited.
No one's going to, agree with me, but I think they should have called that the Bondi X, even though the first Bondi X was not a very good shoe.
Yeah.
This is a very good shoe.
When it's what the Bondi X should be.
Right.
When the first Bondi X came out, we're like, it didn't really hit the mark.
This one does.
It does.
It does. So if you're thinking Bondi X, that's what the Skyward is. They're not going to agree with me, but whatever. That's how I keep it straight in my head.
Yeah.
Gotta love shoe name issues, right?
Exactly.
You can't please everyone.
No.
We mentioned it previously, but the New Balance Fuel Cell lineup is excellent.
I mean, we went pretty in depth a few episodes ago about how good New Balance is, and we saw a little bit more at TRE between the SC Elite, the SC Pacer, the Rebel 4.
The Rebel 4 is really good.
Yeah, and then the SC Trainer. We finally got to see the new SC Trainer. I mean, Fuel Cell is just, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's really good stuff.
What they're doing with the geometries, what they're doing with making a shoe for a certain event or distance, it's just... They're killing it the full way, the full line. Saucony and New Balance, I think, really just have really dialed in lines.
There was some other stuff that was kind of under the radar. I don't know if you have anything else from some of the other brands that...
No, I mean, I think that was the big one. The only other would probably be ASICS. We got to see a Meta Speed under the table. Can't say too much other than we did verify it was the shoe worn by Emma Bates, Sarah Hall at Boston. New foams, new plates. Little more to come there, but again, every brand is raising the bar.
Right. Some of the other stuff that we saw, I was walking around and there was these Chinese guys, and they had like a card table with these very Chinese-looking racing shoes. But I remember them because collectively, all three of us tested shoes that Jean-Luc, the founder of HOKA, he got a hold of all these different kind of racing flats from around the world, and he brought them here to try, and they were actually pretty good.
And this was a few years ago,
a few years ago. And so people are going to have a hard time believing this, but P-Backs, so it is a P-Backs, which is in the same factory that Nike makes their Zoom X and their high-end stuff. Carbon plate, retail $120 to $150.
Is that USD, Joe?
That's US dollars. The problem is they don't have any sort of distribution or anything like that, which I don't understand why they were there. And you saw another interesting gentleman.
Yes.
Yes.
So, at TRE, you're just seeing people nonstop. And sometimes you know the people. Sometimes you haven't seen them for 10 years. But sometimes you just meet a random person in an elevator. And that's exactly what happened to me. So a guy by the name of James introduces himself in the elevator, and he says he's in charge of a company called Shoebot. And I'm like, okay, I don't really know what that means. He gives me his card. Unfortunately, I'm so busy with videos during TRE, I wasn't able to make it over to his booth. The next day at breakfast, he comes over, introduces himself again, and he says, hey, can I show you some cool stuff? And I'm like,
I like cool stuff.
I like cool stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
So he goes up to his room, comes back down, he's got a bag. And I'm like, what is going on with this bag? And he starts just pulling stuff out. And it's a small bag, but surprisingly, he's just pulling it's like
rabbits out of a hat.
Wow.
Exactly. So first he throws a couple slabs of foam on the table. And I look at it, and it's very interesting looking foam. It's a couple of different supercritical foams. And the first thing I'm thinking is, like, I want to feel it. But before I can even feel it, I think he takes like a cell phone off of the table, and he's launching it off the foam slabs, throwing it, and it's bouncing, showing the energy return. And these phones are bouncing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's cool stuff. And he's telling me about, the different durometers and responsiveness. And he used to work at Aggie, which kind of makes sense. I remember the old Boost compounds that they used to drop marbles off of.
Right.
So they like to show the bounciness of the foams. So I'm looking now at a sandal that catches my eye that he throws on the table, and I pick it up, and it's one of the lightest, just really soft, supercritical-like material. And I looked at it, and it almost looked like the Adidas Evo 1 foam, which, that's revolutionary foam. I'm like, why is this in a sandal? And he said, this feels so nice, so soft. It is very bouncy, and it's very expensive to make. He said, if you want to make one of these, it's going to cost you a pretty penny, but really cool stuff showing that technology. I don't know if I'd run in this sandal, but if you had to run in a sandal,
that's a good one.
That's a good one to pick. And then he's like, but if you want the most comfortable sandal, he throws another one out. And it looked like the sandal that Asics made recently, completely 3D printed. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you see all these geometric shapes, one piece, and he told me to try it on. And I was like, this just feels amazing. So, he keeps throwing more stuff out on the table. He tells me a little bit about his company, and he said that, they're based in China. He has his factory, and his whole thing is he wants to get brands, retailers, whoever, to get shoes into the market in a really fast pace. So I think his goal is, like, within a few months, he can have shoes to you. So, again, like, will Running Warehouse go down that route? I don't know. Probably not. You never know, but it's
interesting.
Really cool stuff.
Yeah, it's cool seeing what's out there.
Yeah.
And the rest of the planet.
Yeah.
And the stuff that doesn't really come to our market. But, the other things at the running event that you see that, I didn't think would interest me, but a company called Stunt Puppy.
What is that?
Stunt Puppies. So I'd never seen this before. It was leashes designed specifically to run with your dog.
You're all about the dog walking stuff too.
Well, no, but if like your wife runs with a dog, right?
Yeah.
So it's a leash that wraps around your waist and has a bungee, and you can adjust the distance that the dog runs away from you.
Mm-hmm. Is this a new technology? This doesn't seem.
No. I don't know. It just seemed like it seems like somebody should have invented this long. Maybe
That's
they
very
did.
true.
I don't know. This is the first time I saw it.
There's some patented bungee cord, perhaps.
Exactly. So these are the kind of things that interest you. So you spend 2 days walking around 8 hours and finding things like this that you can't live without.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that custom shoe type of thing, that's something that has been explored in the past, right?
Yeah, it's just, if you're producing it yourself, you run the risk of if it doesn't work, you're kind of hosed.
Yeah.
Not kind of, you're really hosed. Mm-hmm. But some of the other stuff worth noting from the running event, Gus's Fried Chicken.
Yes.
So that is located a block away from the convention center, and you have to go to Gus's because I think it's a franchise. I'm not sure. But anyways, I got myself a thigh. I like a good thigh. Sure. And potato salad and a Shinerbach. And I was sitting at the counter, and then over my shoulder, I saw Tom Carlio, who was in charge of running, or was in charge of running at New Balance, and Danny Orr. So I went over and talked to them. And if those guys are eating at Gus's Fried Chicken.
Oh, Carlio only eats at the finest establishments.
Yeah, a piece of chicken is like $2. It's really inexpensive.
Yeah.
I think I get out of there under $10.
Yeah. I mean, all we do is eat, run. Some people might partake in a drink, but that's about all there is at TRE. It's a lot of burning calories and consuming calories.
Exactly. So, Sean, we were at the coffee maker right after we got back from Austin for the running event. He said he was going to go to Austin for a wedding. Asked for some suggestions, and I mentioned Gus's Fried Chicken and Cooper's Barbecue. Mm-hmm. And you made it to Cooper's Barbecue. We all made it to Cooper's Barbecue.
We all did,
yeah.
And what was your experience like at Cooper's Barbecue?
Well, if you want the best barbecue in Austin,
it's pretty good.
It's probably up there. I haven't explored everything, but it's really good. But they eye out. Oh, yeah. They see the tourists, and they have the whole spiel down. Because we came in hungry and basically
for lunch, right?
Yeah, for lunch. And they said, "Oh, you need to get some of this. You need to get some of this." So we got some paychecks to spend. So we're getting the brisket, the blah blah blah. And we're going through everything, and they say, "You guys look like you're hungry. You need some dino ribs." And we're like, "All right, well, we each get a dino rib." We're not looking at prices. These dino ribs, $26 a rib.
Oh my gosh.
So I think we went out about $80 a person for lunch. So we had to skip a few meals after that. But
Was it actually like a very massive rib?
I mean, it looks like a dinosaur bone.
Wow.
And a bunch of meat.
And you ordered how many of them?
We ordered 3 of them.
3 each?
No, we ordered 3
Okay.
total. I mean, this would feed a family of 4.
I know you're an eater though, Connor.
I am an
I bet
eater.
you could have eaten all 3 by yourself.
I could have.
So, Sean, what was your experience at Cooper's
Oh man,
Barbecue?
so that's funny because you guys seem like you got the seamless experience of like, oh, I go in and order. This is great. Like, so we go there on your recommendation, and I walk in and it's pretty empty because we got there pretty early. And so I'm just walking around. I'm like, I don't really know how to order in this place. Like, there's a guy standing there with a knife, and there's a bunch of meat next to him. I'm like, is this like a deli? Did I accidentally go into like the deli area? And so I'm like walking around aimlessly around the bar, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm just gonna go ask that guy if I just order some meat. And then yeah, like find out, oh yeah, he slices it there for you. You pick whichever ones you want, and then you get your sides and stuff. Oh, I'm like, this is like Chipotle, great. It's just like a counter situation. So we get our food. And they're like, here are your plates. And the plates are pieces of construction paper, which is just fantastic. For a Texas rookie, I feel like this is like a stunning revelation for me. But maybe for a Texas person, be like, oh man, this guy like doesn't even know what a plate is. And so we get our food and we go to sit down. And next to the soda machine, you guys probably saw this too, there's 2 massive vats that just say bean pot.
Yes.
On top of it. I'm like, what the heck is a bean pot? Like, I've never seen. And then it's like, this is past all the food. We've already paid for everything. I'm like, is this free? Like, can I just go grab some beans? And I just like kind of steadily go up. I'm like, I hope no one gets me in trouble for this. And I just go take some beans. I'm like, oh, these can't be very good though, right? And I eat them. I'm like, oh my gosh, these are the best beans I've ever had from the bean pot at Cooper's Barbecue. And the rest of the food was great too, obviously. Like the brisket was amazing. And
It was.
yeah, it was
it's
great.
a good spot.
Great
Yeah.
recommendation.
And it's only like 3 or 4 blocks from the convention center,
Right.
as well.
Right.
I went to Cooper's in lieu of the Brooks party.
Yes.
I went and I said I had to get up at 4 a.m. the next day to catch a flight, which I missed. But anyways,
Should have gone to the party.
should it? No. This part, I'll let Connor go into this party here in a moment. But yeah, I went and picked up Cooper's to go and went back to my room and sat in front of the computer, looked at YouTube, had a glass of wine, and ate my barbecue, and then went to bed.
Yep.
Sounds like a nice night.
It was a nice night.
Yeah.
Tell us about your night.
So, I mean, look, if you've been to TRE or
The
if-
Brooks party is off the rails.
they call it the send-off party because you send off at this party.
Oh man.
Oh, these people are not feeling good on the flight. The majority
And,
of the people.
You know, a lot of people try to book their flights a little later in the day the next day because you sleep in after the Brooks party, but they do it well. So it always starts, at least this year, started with the Nike pre-party. We had fun over there and slowly made our way over to Brooks. So we get in line. Jamie LaChance, big deal over at Brooks. He sees me and he points. He goes, VIP right there, which, I didn't disagree.
No.
So our whole party gets VIP bracelets, free everything once you get inside. And you get in this venue and you think you're going into an indoor venue. You go in and it's actually an open air outdoor venue, 2 floors. Every runner is there. So we got the athletes who competed in the cross country race. We got the designers. We got the influencers. Everyone's there to see Y'all Out Boy, which is the Texas Fall Out Boys.
Oh my gosh.
So it's 90s, 2000s punk rock all night long. It's crazy. And me, I get right down to the pit. I'm not wasting any time. And I look up and I see my video crew. I see the Believe in the Run guys, Kafuzi, all the influencers. They're kind of taking it chill, taking it easy. And I said, let's wait for a few more drinks. And little do we know, they start slowly all coming down. And as the night progressed, I mean, we got mosh pits. We got crowd surfing. At one point, I thought I saw a woman like crowd surf by me. I'm like, was that Des Linden? No, that couldn't have been. Later in the night, I go, I'm waiting in line in one of the little rooms, and Des comes in. I'm like, Des, was that you crowd surfing? And she just goes,
You did not keep that quiet.
no. So, I mean, Believe in the Run is going live on Instagram, documenting the whole night, which is never a good thing because as the night progressed,
People, it's if you're a VIP, it's an open bar with booze, some serious booze.
It is
Dangerous.
open.
Yeah.
I mean, the alcohol is flowing at this event, and Anders Holmes from Workaholics, he commented on the live stream, was just like, "This is crazy." Like, you know when the Workaholics guy is coming in.
Yeah, they know what's
a good
what.
party.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was. I mean,
You had what? You were going down the lineup.
yes. Well, I mean, so I'm seeing all the influencers down in the pit, and they're all coming down. We got Drew from Wear Testers, Kafuzi, and I'm telling every single person, you got to be on the podcast because, you know, we're networking. We're trying to build the guests. So I go, Drew, Kafuzi, and I go through the line. Thomas, every single one says, yeah, we'll be on the podcast. The last person in the line is an older gentleman, real nice looking guy. Yeah, he looked good. And I just said, hey, you got to be on the podcast. And he looks at me and he goes, you know what? That'd be fantastic. You let me know when and I'll be there. And I'm just like, who was that? Like, I don't know. And Thomas goes, that was the CEO of Brooks.
It's Jim Weber.
So
Good
yeah,
get.
you know, you never know who will show up on this podcast in the coming months, but some big guests coming.
Yes, but we do know who has to leave. Our guest.
you
He has to
mean-
go back
awesome.
and force you to buy, chase you around the internet and have you buy stuff you don't want or need.
That's true. That is my main occupation here.
Yes.
But it was lovely talking to you guys.
All
Thanks
right.
for
And
having me on.
maybe we get Sean back on another podcast.
Yes.
Because you can't forget, he is the most experienced podcaster in this building.
Yes.
200,
man.
nearly 200 episodes on his basketball podcast.
That's true, yeah. Have
The
an
Second Stringers?
Yep, the Second Stringers NBA podcast, my amateur basketball podcast I do with my buddy Alan, who used to work here too.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
this
I bet
is,
he's listening to this right now.
this is a running podcast, so I'm going to have to tell you to get on out of here.
Thanks,
Cool.
guys.
Sean.
Well, thanks a lot.
Appreciate it.
All right. And we are back.
We're back.
We're going to talk about development cycles.
Okay.
And we talked about this with your shoe bot guy.
Yeah.
Like he's talking about bringing out shoes in a very short period of time.
Yes.
And probably the guy that's actually in the United States that does it really well is Jean-Luc at HOKA. So there was a time when Jean-Luc was in charge of HOKA that they were coming out with shoes literally every month. I mean, his development cycle was incredibly fast.
The story we always talk about is the Hupana.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw that in his office and you told him, and how was it, a few months?
Yeah, it was like 2 or 3 months later.
Yeah.
We had the shoe in the warehouse.
Exclusive,
Yeah. But so we have life cycles that are 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, upwards of 36 months. And people in listening land might not understand why you'd want each one of those.
Yeah.
And we like fast life cycles because the people who shop online tend to want new. We tend to find that anything past 18 months, the sales fall off.
Right.
Now, if you are in a brick and mortar type situation where, the turns, which is the amount of product you're moving each month, isn't as quick as ours, you're going to want longer life cycles. So you have certain brands that are coming with 24-month life cycles, which is in large part what HOKA is doing. In fact, the current Bondi is on a 36-month life cycle.
Yeah.
But we tend to like stuff that comes out quickly.
Yeah. And sometimes even it doesn't need to be a full shoe update. I mean, it's always nice to get the new tooling, but even just an upper update, something, a lot of people, they get bored of shoes and they want the latest, greatest. And if you put a new upper, throw a new number on, maybe it's not a substantially different shoe, but at least it gives people a reason to maybe, get another pair.
Yeah, there's some news there. So, again, we tend to like things quick and fast and new and interesting and exciting. Those types of things. But, the other thing that I wanted to bring up was embargoes and launch dates. Now, you deal with this
Constantly.
Yeah. So maybe explain what an embargo is in a launch date.
Yeah. So the embargo date is basically, well, we'll start off with the launch date.
Yeah.
Launch date is when the shoe will officially come out, launch, and be up on our site ready to go. But the embargo is when we can actually officially talk about the shoe. So put up our YouTube videos, put up a little first look. And the embargoes get tricky because every brand has different dates. A lot of brands don't even have dates. And it just gets tricky because we want to provide our customers with the most up-to-date, show them the products as soon as possible, get them excited, build that hype. And every brand is a little different, and trying to keep track of all the dates or just trying to track down a date can get pretty challenging.
Yeah, and it changes constantly.
Constantly.
And the other thing that really has never made any sense to me is embargoes are different for the influencers versus us. So any of the influencers that you brought up before can show the product weeks, months before we can officially do that.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, since those guys can't sell the shoes and we can actually sell the shoes. So it would seem to make sense to me that you'd give us early dibs so we can build up demand and then actually sell the product. But
and some brands, actually a lot of brands have been getting better. So I feel every year it's getting better. And I'd say now there's only a few that are holding out that don't let us post while everyone else does. So I'm hopeful that we'll continue to be able to be part of the conversation. And if anything, I would just love for everyone to be able to talk about the shoes all at once and build that hype and allow us to be, the product experts. And if people see Thomas or Kafuzi talking about a shoe, they can come to us and ask questions, and we're allowed to answer them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
The other thing that's come up on my radar recently, that it hasn't just come up recently, but it's rearing its ugly head more so right now, is the amount of national high school championships. I mean, do we really need that many national high school championships?
There's so many.
Yeah, you got Foot Locker. Is it Foot Locker now?
Yep.
It was champs. It was.
Yeah, it's hard to keep track.
Yeah, and then you have
next year it'll be something different.
Yeah, you have NXN.
Yep.
You have Running Lane.
Yep.
In track, you have the Brooks.
Yep.
New Balance.
Yep.
Nike. In my head, it'd be cool if you just had one national championship for cross country and one national championship for track.
Yeah.
And you can change it to sponsors and stuff like this. And the story I heard on how this all started was Foot Locker was the original. And
which was Kinney.
It was Kinney, yeah. And I remember I was a senior going into my senior championship season, and my coach asked me, he goes, "Do you want to do this Kinney National Champion qualifying? It's going to be at Crystal Springs the week after NorCal's." And I go, "Why in the hell would I want to do that? My season I've been pointing towards NorCal's. I don't want to do this stupid national team." Anyway, so that was the first year of having the national championship in 1980, fall of 80. And my good friend Andy DeConnie, I forgot what place Andy got, but anyways, he's a guy from Pasadena. He's got an interesting story about. He still is. I don't know if he's retired or not, but he was at La Cañada High School, and before that, he was art teacher at this junior high that fed into La Cañada. And he was walking around and he was listening to these kids talk about driving golf balls. And one kid said, "I can drive at 300 yards," and the kid's in 7th grade. And Andy's thinking, "You're full of crap," but he didn't call him on it. Turned out to be Colin Morikawa.
Wow.
So, a PGA champion and stuff like that. So anyways, but I'm going off the rails here.
Well, everyone in high school.
So the story on how these multiple national championships came about was there were some people in the sports marketing at Nike, and they were younger, and they said that they wanted to start their own national championship with a team component. And my understanding is John Truex, who's not there any longer, but he used to work in track and field, designing track and field shoes. And Chris O'Donnell, who's in charge, he's one of the higher up on Tracktown. They said, "Why don't we just combine it?" And they go, "Well, ASICS is sponsoring it. We don't want to do that." And they go, "It's better for the sport if we made it like an NCAA championship. We have a team component and an individual component, one big meet."
Right.
And the younger kids didn't want any part of it, so they started NXN.
Yeah.
And that started, I think when Hesse was like in 7th grade or something like that, pretty long time ago. Yeah. But now we have just these meets everywhere. And it's not just in high school. Yeah. You have races every weekend. And I know Jesse, who put on the Sound Running cross country meet that went along with the running event. Yep. I know he had his reasons for doing it in Austin. Yep. But the week later, there was the USATF Club Cross Country Championships in Tallahassee. And the advantage there is you'd have a bigger meet, but also the 2026 World Cross Country meet is at Tallahassee. So the people that are likely to make that team, you would give them an opportunity to run on that course and preview it beforehand. Yeah. So, I mean, it's never going to happen, but I think combining races and meets on the same day would be beneficial for our sport. So we'd have more head-to-head competition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you want the best runners running against each other. And when you split it up, you have to make a choice on which race you're going to run in.
Right. And I can't even keep track of the high school stuff right now. I don't know who's running what and who's actually national champion.
Right.
Right. It's tough.
Okay. Well, I mean, again, every week you were scouring the internet.
Oh, yes.
For the craziest people. And
I don't know if they're crazy. There's some people that are, they might be crazy. But in this one, it's Ray Lauzon, Lauzon, on, of course, the Running Shoe Geeks. And he asks, and this is a decent question, a relevant question, is there a shelf life on shoes? Already have many pairs on rotation, and these probably won't get used until 2025.
Ooh, okay. A little bit away.
Right. I think they should be fine as long as you treat it like a wine.
Yes.
You want it in a cool place, right, out of the sunlight.
Yep.
And so I think all the listeners in listener land should build themselves a running shoe cellar.
Yes.
If this is the plan, to keep the shoes through 2025.
You got to.
And back to Austin, Texas, I went walking around and I went looking for Mellow Johnny's, which is Lance Armstrong's bike shop.
Yep.
And I found it, but it was a new location. The old location was really cool. It had a lot of character. The one thing it didn't have was air conditioning. So when I went in the new one, I asked the kid that was working, I said, do you like the new location? He says, what do you think? And I said, it's a little antiseptic. It's not as cool as the other one. You know, when Lance's bike's all up on the ceiling and all that.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you think of the new place? He goes, we have air conditioning. He says, this is really great. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, if you have your local running store that has their shoes and they don't have air conditioning and it gets really hot, that's going to negatively affect that shoe. So the life of that shoe is going to be less than, in our case, everything's, because we have humans working out in the warehouse, everything's air conditioned and everything's out of sunlight. So they tend to last longer. And this isn't the case for all running shoe stores, but if you're finding yourself in a store that lacks air conditioning, the shoes are probably going to last.
I mean, I've lost from growing up in the desert. I've lost a lot of shoes. You know, keeping them out in the garage, keeping them outside. Heat is one of the worst things. You know, high heat, 90s, 100s. It just wrecks these shoes. And nowadays I've got too many shoes to count. I keep most of mine in in cabinets, kind of in a cool. No sunlight, and you know, I have shoes that have lasted years, and you know, no matter how good of care you take, time will degrade shoes a little bit, but you can minimize that damage by just keeping it in the best conditions.
Right. Well, we had one guy he was running in 10-year-old Elixir 5s, right, and he wanted to know if the shoe was still made, and he went on a 21K, which is a 13.1 mile run. In these shoes that are 10 years old, which has got to be hard as a rock.
I'm surprised he didn't lose the outsole. I mean, the glue after that long.
Well, the other thing, too, is, you know, obviously he knows more than you or I because he's still running in shoes that are 10 years old and he's not getting hurt. But back to the answering the internet, Let's Run's world-famous message board offers up this insight on the location for next year's USATF Club Champs, which was held, like I said earlier, in Tallahassee. So, shoe tubers have no ethics rights. Tacoma would be okay, but I think it should be in Portland next. They have a pretty active local club cross-country circuit up there, and they have a bunch of interesting courses. It'll probably go west of the Mississippi. Now, shoe tubers have no ethics doesn't understand the process of how a location is picked for any sort of championships. So I read constantly about the Olympic trials in track should be held in New York or Chicago or Los Angeles or any number of places. The problem is you need a group of people that are experts in putting on a track meet, that have the volunteers, and they actually have to put a bid in to host the meet. They have to want to do it. So you can wish it goes to Chicago all you want, but there's not a group of people in Chicago that want to do this. And I don't know that there's a location you can do it either. Yeah. Same thing in New York. Yeah. You know, in Boston, you have the indoors. You know, you got a group of people there, and NC's, you know, Austin and things like that. But Oregon, for the Olympic trials, it always goes there. You know, Eugene, because those people want to put it on. Yep. They know how to put it on. And if you're going to come down to making a choice, it's going to be on people that you trust to put on a good event.
Well, if it was up to you, and you know, you could put a bid in on a city, where would you think would be the best place in the country?
Well, the tough part is finding, there's a variety of different things from my perspective, because the reason I like Eugene is because everyone's close together and it's easy to get around, and everyone, can go as a group.
Right.
Mount Sac would be a great location.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is it's such a wide area.
Right.
To get everyone together is really difficult.
Yeah.
But the facility is fantastic.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I'm guessing Austin can host it. Des Moines, possibly. It's just when you get to Des Moines at that time of the year in July, it's pretty hot and humid. So when do you host the 10K and things like that?
Right.
And that's the other thing with some of the meets. Like, we should put it on in Des Moines, well, because of the Drake Relays, and Drake Relays is packed. Or there's two reasons the Drake Relay is packed. One is it's homecoming for Drake University, and that's the thing to do. Right. And the other is the unofficial state championship for Iowa High School. So you have all the parents and all the coaches. It's the only time all the divisions compete against each other. Yeah. So you have those two things. And when you have USATF's national championships, you don't have either one of those things. And so you have things like me and Lance Harder and Sheldon Blockberger as the only people in the stands. So, Tacoma put up a bid for Cross Country Nationals Club Cross, and they got it because Tom Cotner, who's part of Club Northwest, knows his stuff. Yeah. People trust him, and they put in a bid. And no one has put in a bid for 25. So you might not like where it goes, but there's not a whole group of people. It's not the athletes deciding where it goes. It's USATF, and a large part of it has to do with who's putting in a bid. Right. In many cases, you don't even have a bid. Or you win the bid, and then somebody at USATF who makes a lot of money says it's not going to Chattanooga, it's going to go to Orlando. And Orlando sucks, but whatever. Anyways, that's enough of that.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are running Warehouse, so we got to talk shoes. Mm-hmm. And in past weeks, we've seen Eric's Shoe Closet. That was the OG segment.
Right.
It transferred over to Connor's Shoe Closet.
Right.
And this week, we got a special treat from a close friend of yours. Do you wanna tell us what we have in store today?
Well, it's Kevin Searles, who's the president of the HOKA Aggie Running Club. Okay. And legend. His daughter's a very good runner at Alhambra High School. Mm-hmm. It's going to be coming to Cal Poly. Okay. His wife is a former All-American at Cal Poly. Mm-hmm. And so he's been running since the 70s. And he gave me a bag of shoes, two of which we were going to discuss today.
Okay. Well, and we'll see a little bit more of this bag, but I don't think Kevin knew exactly what he gave you, because if he knew he was handing over maybe $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 worth of shoes, he might not have given them so easily.
But he didn't give me pairs, so we can't sell it.
Okay.
So why don't you talk about the shoes we have?
Okay. So first pair, we'll start with the Waffle Racer.
Waffle Racer.
Now, were you racing during this?
I was.
Era?
Yeah. And the one I had wasn't like that. I actually had the track version, the spike version. Yep. It's called the Universe. Yeah. And it was orange with white. Yep. But the same shoe. We have to be careful with these because they're ready to explode.
They're falling apart. You can tell pieces are just falling out of it.
Yeah, this is what Kevin actually raced in.
Right. And of course, you've got that famous waffle outsole that, for the time, this was revolutionary.
Yeah, exactly. So it provided a lot of grip. Yep. And it did the job. So it was kind of like a track spike without the spikes. Yeah. Was the idea.
Right. And then, of course, the Waffle Racer also had its training counterpart. Yep. Did these come out around the same time?
Yeah, those came out, I want to say in 77, maybe earlier. Yep. That was my first, not that particular pair, but that color and model was my first real running shoe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And when you look at these, the uppers are just so amazing. These are collector's items. Each of these probably sell in good condition, $500 to $1,000 a pair. And the suede in the back. This is engineering right here at its finest.
Let me see. I have the Runner's World. We'll show this in a little bit. Runner's World shoe guide, where they rank the shoes from October 1977. And of course, I don't throw anything away, and I have this thing. But the Nike Waffle Trainer is ranked number 3.
Wow.
Behind the Brooks Vantage and the Adidas Runner. And then in fourth was the Nike LD 1000V. Okay. I had that. I ran my first marathon. Yep. What was it? It was a Livermore Marathon. And the first model of the LD 1000 had a really wide heel. And the problem was it was a pretty stiff midsole. Mm-hmm. And because it was wide, it was like I don't know what you describe, but basically once you hit your outside heel, it would slap your foot down.
Yep.
And it kind of screwed up a lot of people's knees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Nike came onto the market in the 70s, they had some crazy shoes. And while we were looking for this article, I was going through magazines and I found an ad for probably the original Nike shoe, the Nike Obori.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, this shoe was wild. 4 out of the top 7 finishers at the 72 trials wore this shoe, which this was basically a prototype at the time. So can you imagine running a shoe basically your first time and it's the Olympic trials marathon?
Well, they had the Obori, and then also they had the Waffle Racer.
Yep.
And that was Mark Covert ran in that.
Yes.
The original.
So he ran in the original Moon shoe.
Yes.
Which if there's only a few of those handmade. And I mean, now I think one sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I was at Mount Sac Relays.
Yeah.
This had to be 25 years ago. We had a booth set up for Nike, and Mark brought those pair of shoes to give to Nike to put in the museum.
Yeah.
So I don't think that he ever got paid for them.
Yeah, that's too bad.
But Mark had the second longest running streak.
Yep.
Behind Ron Hill.
Yep.
That
would be a good guest for the podcast. I'm sure he's got a lot of miles in his legs.
The other person that, if we can figure out how to get him on, is a gentleman that I sent shoes to last week, Jerry Lindgren.
Okay.
So he's over in Hawaii, but maybe we have to go over to Honolulu and visit him.
I'm not opposed. But yeah, I mean, again, Nike history. I will say though, with that the Obori, because that was a shoe that I was looking to see if we could get. That shoe is going for $5,000, and it actually, when I did some research, it ended up being renamed to the Boston 73, and that was after John Anderson won Boston wearing that shoe. They renamed it. So
I have a John Anderson story.
Do you?
Yes. So I was golfing with him, and I didn't know it was John Anderson. It was just John. And through the course of 18 holes, you kind of get an idea that the guy used to run.
Yeah.
And so I asked him on the 18th fairway. I said, "John, did you used to run?" He goes, "Yeah." And I go, "What's your resume look like?" He goes, "I made the 72 10,000 team, and I won Boston 73." I go, "Oh, you're that John." You have foot and mouth disease. So there's a lot of people wearing Hokas and Ons, like a lot. Like I just flew back from Atlanta, and those are the shoes you see in the airport most often.
Yep.
I watched these guys, Chris and Tony from My Golf Spy.
Yep.
And they were talking. Tony was talking about a company that will take any shoe and put a golf outsole on it.
Oh, nice.
A spike. And so Tony asked Chris, or vice versa, which shoe would you have? And the guy said, Doc Martens. And then the guy asked the other guy, he says, what would you use? He goes, I use my running shoes. He goes, you're an on-cloud guy, right? He goes, yeah. And he goes, you're a Hoka guy, right? He goes, yeah. Why don't we do that? And so that's what they decided to do. But do you think it's an issue for those brands that people that aren't running at all, they have no intention of running, that they're buying Hokas and Ons?
Yeah.
Is that sustainable, do you think?
It's hard to know because, I mean, I love those brands because of their running core, but at the same time, you're watching the PGA Tour and you're seeing caddies wearing Bondis, and it's great exposure for the brand. So I see both sides, and my only concern would be as long as Hoka or On continues with that core running philosophy, let's get it on as many people as you can. But I just always worry that brands start pushing more towards athleisure, towards fashion, and they forget about that core running performance
And I think when that happens, then you run into problems where it's a fashion play and not a performance run play.
Yeah.
And then things go haywire. So I think that's about it for the day. I mean, the next episode we'll have a discussion of on Thursday this week. I'm driving down to Santa Barbara, having lunch with the Shoe Dorks.
Explain who these guys are, because I think we might have to go down to Santa Barbara one of these weeks and do a podcast with them.
Or have them come up here. So for those that don't know, Santa Barbara is about an hour and a half, 2 hour drive south of here. Yeah. And so usually about once every 3 or 4 months, I'll go down and have lunch with these individuals. One of which is Jean-Luc, the founder of HOKA, and he'll always bring some really cool stuff to check out.
Yeah.
The other person is Jeff Gray, who is he's very well regarded in terms of testing running shoes.
Yes.
So cushioning, rebound,
He-
fit.
Helix Lab.
Helix Lab in Santa Barbara.
They're doing really cool things.
Right. And so also durability and grip. So he does stuff with like work shoes and can tell you, the thing is, if you're working in a restaurant, in a kitchen, you don't want slippery shoes.
No.
So he does work boots, also does golf shoes and things like that.
Yep.
So there's him. Then there's Stuart Jenkins. And Stuart Jenkins was at Deckers when Deckers bought HOKA. So I think 2009 he was there, and he head up a lot of their innovation. And I believe the team that he was in charge of invented the Clifton.
So these are basically the Avengers of the running shoe innovation.
Yeah, but it's really cool. And the other person that's there is Lee Cox.
Oh, yeah?
And Lee Cox is heading up a new brand within Deckers that...
We've got a couple. Yeah, we got a couple shoes here. I mean, because we've been testing Deckers Lab product for years, and this is kind of where they start with innovation. And these are just a couple different prototypes we have, but really cool stuff.
Right. So more of a leisure, casual upper.
Yes.
And a super foam with the plate.
Yep.
For the most part. So, I mean, you've run in these shoes. They're good to run in.
Yeah,
and they look good too.
I've ran in these, which definitely have that more athleisure, but the performance is there. And I've also seen them transfer the uppers into more race specific, maybe tune the geometries to be even more aggressive for race day.
Right.
So you can kind of see where the technology can get transferred for different uses. But Jean-Luc, he's a mad scientist. He always brings the coolest stuff. And I'm super lucky to be able to try it.
So
it's cool.
it's more of a leisure, and actually these two models became the HOKA Transport. Basically,
elements got taken.
Yeah, exactly. So it was should be an interesting lunch. It always is, and I'll bring back some stories. But the thing is, with Jean-Luc and going over to Asia consistently and looking at all the different developments, he has a pretty good idea where the industry's going.
Yes,
and I like to know where the industry's going so that we're prepared for it.
Right.
But same thing with Jeff. Jeff tests every single running shoe there is, so he can tell me which ones are the softest, which ones, how they perform and stuff like that. So pretty cool stuff. Yeah. But at this point, click like if you enjoyed what we babbled about today.
You can click subscribe. You can leave a comment down below. I'm still waiting for some hot and juicy comments that we can answer.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, ask us questions, and we'll do our best to answer in a thoughtful and honest manner. Actually, that's what we want to do.
Yeah.
Not joking around and stuff like that. But so if you're up for it, ask us some questions, and we'll get to it. But anyways.
Yeah, big things to come.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Until next time.
All right. Peace out.